And a lot of times for women in business, we have multiple things to think about because oftentimes we are in environments where there's a lot of men, or we have to work with men because, they're the ones that are running things.
Make up half the planet.
Take up half the planet. Exactly. So, and that's perfectly beautiful. I mean, we all work together, and this is what we talked about earlier, understanding how to communicate, in diverse environments. But for women in particular, I think when it comes to networking and starting a business, we just have to be very careful and almost overcompensate sometimes to make sure that we're professional all the times, because some of the things that other people might look at some of the things we do and get the wrong idea or get the wrong message or get the wrong opinion. So what does that mean? That means, ensuring that you're dressed appropriately for a business environment.
Yeah.
And I'm not passing judgment on women that, wear makeup or jewelry. It's just that when you're in a business environment and you're selling, products and services. Now, I'm not talking about someone that has maybe started a business, a small shop in Chicago that's selling random things. I mean, it depends on what you're selling. But generally speaking, if you're there for business, act the part and be the part so that you don't have situations where people think you're there for something else.
Yeah. I think it's a contextual thing as well, because, I mean, this could go so many different ways. I mean, I'm not going to say everyone, but a lot of women wear makeup and jewelry to professional settings, but specifically
And I do.
And I do. So contextually speaking, you really have to understand the context of the people around you, what the culture is around you, and how you can fit into that culture and present yourself in the most professional way possible. A lot of times, like with sales, it's less about where you're coming from and more about where the person you're speaking to is at and what you need to do to convey your message to them, how you can speak their language.
Right. And I agree. When it comes to male and female relations, because I have a lot of women entrepreneurs in the space, and we talk about this a lot, where we're at networking events and, some of the men that are there are not really there for the same reason we are. And it gets a little tricky. So you always have to be on your P's and Q's. You always have to be very cognizant and pay attention to your surroundings. And you do have to keep a slight distance, when you're doing business. You've got to keep a slight distance around you to make sure that people understand that you're there for business. You don't want to invite, you don't want to invite unwanted conversation if it's not aligned with your goals as a business. And this is tough for women sometimes in environments. I mean, we're dealing with a lot of issues in the United States right now anyway.
Yeah.
Especially along with sexual harassment and inappropriate behavior and all kinds of things. So when you're in a business environment and when you're trying to do business, make sure that everyone that you're talking to knows that's what it's all about.
The responsibility shouldn't be on a woman to rebuff a man's advances, especially from a professional setting, because your mind isn't even there. So what we're talking about is a level of vigilance that, although shouldn't have to be put in place, is still important to put in place because that's the world that we live in.
That's true.
If you're a very open and inviting person, that's amazing. That's a really good quality to have. You should also be prepared to know that there are some men who in professional settings, although those settings are professional, receive openness and friendliness in a way that is not professional.
At the bottom of all this, I want to just talk about stress, because it's a grind. Stress. And what does stress mean? Stress means that when you are...
It was like
a lot of things.
A lot of stuff.
I mean, when you think about stress and what's required, the physical requirement, the mental, emotional, spiritual, psychological requirement. I mean, think about when we were in New York last week on business. We were on business for 6 straight days in New York.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't stop. We were on that G train.
Yeah.
In New York, stuck for 30 minutes underground. Wall to wall people at 12:30 coming back from a networking event at the New York Stock Exchange.
It was horrible.
I mean, we got a lot of business done, but it was exhausting, And then after we got off the train and we went and had dinner, what did we do? We immediately ordered cocktails.
Yeah.
And, you got to watch out with that.